Howdy gamers, let's talk about the runes for Karthus jungle. They're pretty set in stone other than the variations in his secondary runes. So starting off with the Keystone, it's going to be Dark Harvest. Dark Harvest, whenever you damage a champion below 50% health, you deal adaptive damage and then you harvest their soul, permanently increasing Dark Harvest damage by 5. Dark Harvest damage is based on your level, the amount of souls you've collected, and then for Karthus, your bonus ability power. And then it's on a 45-second cooldown, but then it's reset to 1.5 on a takedown. With the cooldown on Dark Harvest, it is for all targets, but in the jungle, it's not so bad as Karthus isn't a jungler that ganks one lane, then ganks the next, then it ganks the next. So you might miss out on damage in some instances in which you would be fighting all the time like that, but it's very rare for Karthus as you're power clearing like the entire game, So when you would go for a skirmish or an objective fight, or be looking for an ult, then Dark Harvest is effectively always going to be off cooldown. And then come mid to late game, as skirmishes would be happening, getting a kill or assist is very easy as you do have an ult that hits every single champion in the game. So it's very likely that Dark Harvest is always going to be up when you need it. And then even if you don't kill a target with your ult or in a skirmish, then you do get the Dark Harvest proc, which is permanently increasing the damage that it deals. So as the game goes on and on, it just adds to Karthus like infinite scaling too, which is really like strong, gross, powerful. It's really good. It's really good. So best Keystone by far on Karthus jungle. Everything else pales on like multiple levels. For the secondary rune, it's going to be Cheap Shot, as even though the only slow in Karthus' kit is his W, you're going to have access to red buff and blue smite from the jungle. So you do have multiple ways to proc Cheap Shot. With Cheap Shot, damaging champions with impaired movement or actions deals bonus true damage based on your level, and then this is only on a 4-second cooldown. So you have multiple ways to proc this multiple times whenever you're going for a gank or a skirmish or in a team fight. So just adds to your damage, and even if it's just off your W, it's still extra damage. And then since it's true damage, even if the enemy has magic resist, you have another way to get better damage values on them than you otherwise would be able to. You get no value out of Taste of Blood from the jungle, and Sudden Impact, of course not. For the third rune, you're basically choosing how you gain your bonus ability power from this. So with Zombie Ward, it's through clearing wards. With Ghost Borrow, it's through placing wards. With Eyeball Collection, it's through getting kills or assist. So with Karthus jungle, I think your best bet is Eyeball Collection, as you're pretty guaranteed to get at least an assist with your ult, if not a kill. And it's really not your job to be placing or clearing wards for your team in the jungle role, as a lot of what you're doing is just full clearing. So even if you don't stack up Eyeball Collection like quickly in the game, it's still there, and the later the game goes on, kills are just going to happen. So it's very likely that you get this stacked up even if it's just through assist. Pretty similar to Dark Harvest. Even if you're just getting assist with your ult, you can still be gaining value out of it, which is really crazy. For the fourth rune, your only good options are really Relentless Hunter and Ravenous Hunter. Ultimate Hunter might seem really tempting on Karthus, but it's not required. Like the 5% cooldown reduction on the ult, plus 4 per stack is okay, but the ult is already on a low enough cooldown, and if you really want that cooldown reduction, you should just get it through Cosmic Insight. Missing out on Ravenous Hunter healing or the movement speed from Relentless Hunter feels a lot worse. With Ravenous Hunter, you heal for a percentage of damage dealt by your abilities, and then this stacks up per Bounty Hunter stack. With a Bounty Hunter stack, that's for each unique takedown. So the top laner would count as 1, the jungler would count as 1, the mid laner would count as 1, etc. And with the healing offered by this, it helps you in your full clear, as you're going to be healing off every single Q, and you Q almost every single second. So you get a lot of effective HP out of this when you're full clearing, and then whenever you're skirmishing, if you're landing your E onto multiple members, that's also going to be healing you, and then your ult will do the same. So Karthus does have a lot of ways to get a lot of value out of Ravenous Hunter, and it's also very easy for him to stack up the bounty stacks. Again, with his ult being global, it's very likely that you can get at minimum an assist, and then therefore the bounty hunter stack to get more percentage healing from the abilities. So that's your highest value rune on Karthus. If you're really trying to be greedy, then Relentless Hunter isn't a bad option, as it will let you have more out of combat movement speed. And the value of the out of combat movement speed is to get into the enemy's jungle and steal their camps, either at better timings or as they're attacking the other side of the map, and it lets you just move around the map faster. So not only could you get their camps, but then respond to a fight faster, and that's effectively the only value out of Relentless Hunter. So it's a way greedier option, but if you're adept at Karthus or think you could make value out of it, then fucking try it, I guess. For the secondary runes, you have good options in Precision, you have good options in Sorcery, and then you also have good options in Inspiration. You really don't have great options in Resolve, as Karthus doesn't need any of the tank stats. Even if you were to go for some really scaling shit like Conditioning and Overgrowth, having more power in your damage is always what you're looking to get through runes for Karthus, as they give you access to damage that you otherwise wouldn't be able to get. So starting off with Precision. Precision's kind of a luxury in my opinion, but it is a really feels good luxury in solo queue. Your best option being Presence of Mind and Coup de Grace. Presence of Mind, takedowns restore 20% of your maximum mana, and then permanently increase your maximum mana by 100 up to 500. This extra mana isn't required on Karthus jungle, but it does feel nice, and having it, um, it just feels nice. That's really it. It's not required, but having it will help you just take really extended fights, and that's basically it. So you take one fight mid, and then nobody resets, and you take another fight like in the river or something. You're gonna have more mana for that fight, so that's something. And it can also help you with your full clear, but once you complete the jungle item, mana is really not an issue. With Coup de Grace, you deal 8% more damage to champions who are below 40% health, so Coup de Grace has the okay synergy with Karthus' ult, but it's not required to kill people. The 8% increase isn't really going to make or break things. The best users of Coup de Grace are like AD carry champions, as they have multiple instances of damage when they're hitting a target who's below 40% health. Having 8% increased damage on just Karthus ult, that's just one instance of damage. So it is an 8% increase, but it's not that crazy versus like 4 auto attacks in like a Kaisa Q or something, you know? With Sorcery, Sorcery is your better option for it gives you scaling, and then it also gives you utility. You get scaling through Gathering Storm, and then you gain utility through Nimbus Cloak. Nimbus Cloak isn't required either, but it does feel nice, and it gives you a lot of leniency in solo queue. With Nimbus Cloak, after you cast a summoner spell, you gain movement speed increase that lasts for 2.5 seconds, allows you to pass through units, and the longer the cooldown of the summoner spell that you cast, the faster that the movement speed increase from Nimbus Cloak is. So with this, if the enemy jumps on you and you blue smite them, it helps you run away. If the enemy jumps on you and you flash away, it helps you run away, and it helps you get enough movement speed to get more distance away from the enemy, so that even if you flash away, you can still actually get away from the enemy. So that's the huge utility in Nimbus Cloak, especially against champions like Lee Sin, Rek'Sai, etc. But if those champions are on you, you're probably dead anyways. So that's where there's a big issue for me with Nimbus Cloak. But if you are playing like neutral and the enemy like gets close to you, then the value of Nimbus Cloak is really, it's just really nice. It's not required, but it is nice, as the extra movement speed allows you to maneuver, and it just makes things a lot easier, especially if you're newer at Karthus. With Gathering Storm, you gain bonus ability power every 10 minutes, and you're basically going to be sitting on plus 24 ability power for most games past 20 minutes, and that's completely fine. It's just ability power you would otherwise not have access to. If you're playing into an AP jungler, champions like Elise, Echo, that want to be invading you and just deal basically unfair amounts of damage, Nullifying Orb's completely fine too. With Nullifying Orb, whenever you take magic damage that would reduce you to below 30% health, you gain a shield that absorbs magic damage based on your level, and this is only on a 60-second cooldown, so it's effectively always up, and especially where you're playing in jungle. I have seen where people run Absolute Focus Gathering Storm. This is kind of a hack for like any farming jungler, where you can just get more ability power than you otherwise would be able to. But this Absolute Focus is the most like misguided thing I've ever seen on Karthus. You die on Karthus, and that's kind of what your champion does. So you just don't gain the access to this ability power when you're dead, or even below 70% health. In most skirmishes, you'd be below 70% health, and you would just lose out on this ability power offered. If you are going to run this tree, like Nimbus Cloak is going to be giving you better values, and missing on the ability power from Absolute Focus, you're really not going to miss it. Absolute Focus would outweigh Gathering Storm in terms of the ability power offered from like minutes maybe 16 to 18 or 16 to 19 right before 20. But that timing really isn't that important. And then Gathering Storm would be outweighing it past that for most of the time, and then past 30 minutes it's always outweighing the ability power offered from Absolute Focus. So Precision would be for like damage luxury. Sorcery would be for like movement luxury, and then also a little bit of scaling. With Inspiration, it's basically for like economic luxury, where you can get free boots and then Cosmic Insight. Cosmic Insight gives you 5% cooldown reduction on abilities, summoner spells, and items. So it's mostly just for your ult, as the 5% cooldown reduction on your Q, like you can feel it, but it's not that crazy. It doesn't really come into play with your cadence on your full clear. And then having cooldown reduction on the E and W is also not so important. So the cooldown reduction is really just for your ult on Karthus. And then with the free boots at 12 is just for whenever you've completed your jungle item, and then where you can complete Sorkpin boots and then Oblivion Orb at a faster rate, or Sorkpin boots plus either Medjai's or Haunting Guys at a faster rate. So it helps you come online a lot faster, and it makes things really consistent for Karthus jungle too, as buying boots is a bit of an investment, and it does just slow your build path down otherwise. And like getting your scaling through items on Karthus is a lot better than getting it through the runes, especially through your secondary runes. So yes, you could have increased damage through Coup de Grace and then extra mana, but you can also just have more damage through getting one kill or assist, or just having more farm than the enemy jungler. With Nimbus Cloak and Gathering Storm, it's really hard to outweigh Nimbus Cloak in solo queue, as the utility of it is really high. But yeah, I think your best option is, it pains me to say it, but Nimbus Cloak Gathering Storm, as it's a lot easier, man. It's a lot easier. And then, but at higher MMRs, and if you're looking for more consistency, then Free Boots and Cosmic Insight is going to be more consistent at higher MMRs. But at lower MMRs, Nimbus Cloak and Gathering Storm is going to be so much value, man. The games last forever. Huge value out of Gathering Storm. Fights are always happening. Huge value out of Nimbus Cloak. So, and then for the shards, it's always going to be ability power, and armor. If you are playing into an AP matchup and you can kite the camps well enough, you can run magic resist. But if you literally die to camps first clear, then you're messing up mechanically, and then basically you as a human need the armor. But Karthus as a champion doesn't need the armor on his first clear, so you can run the magic resist. It's completely fine, especially into, again, the matchups like Elise Echo, and you can also run Nullifying Orb to negate their engage onto you. So that's it for Karthus runes. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. I answer literally all of them. If this video helped you, leaving a like on the video helps me. And if you're interested in watching me play or talk about League of Legends, you can check out my Twitch. It's twitch.tv/SawyearNelson. Links in the description. I'll probably be playing Karthus jungle. I love him, man. Really gross champion. Really absolutely gross champion. Cousin to a Cho'Gath jungle. Just two fine fellows, you know? Love them.